It's easy, as it's on the main page of our website.
Well, I know that you've been there standing in the grocery store looking at labels trying to make sense of the calorie or salt intake from an item, or you're picking up yogurt and canned fruit thinking that they make a great healthy snack throughout the day, but did you know that there is a possibility that they're hidden with lots of sugar? Well, joining me now is dietitian Amanda Burton with Recipe for Health to give us some useful information to help us when we're walking through the aisles. Thanks so much for joining us here on Out of the Fog.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess we can start with, why don't we start with labels? Because I know that, when I'm picking up something like yogurt, and I'm looking at the fat intake or the calories, and I'm doing a guessing game essentially. So can you just I guess explain to us what exactly, or how to read a label?
Sure, no problem. So there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. The very first thing is make sure you reference the amount of food that's right underneath the nutrition facts. Basically, you want to know how much food the rest of this table corresponds to. So what I've done is I've actually laid out some examples of what the serving sizes are for these foods. This one here is about 3/4 of a cup for yogurt, and really you want to compare that to how much you eat. So we know that this label corresponds to 3/4 of a cup, but are we eating a half a cup? Are we eating a full cup? So we really need to keep that in the frame of our mind. Look at the amount first, and then the next thing we want to do is look at the percent daily value. So basically that's the percent DV, and that tells you if there's a little or a lot of a specific nutrient in a food.
So the DV stands for daily value.
Right.
For that, okay.
DV stands for percent daily value. So again, if there's a little or a lot of a specific nutrient in the food, and we know that there's certain nutrients that we want to have more of and certain nutrients we want to have less of. So in terms of things like saturated and trans fat and sodium, obviously we want to have a little bit less of those nutrients. And then things like fiber, vitamins, minerals, we want to have a bit more of those. So the key numbers to keep in mind would be 5% or less is a little, 15% or more is a lot. So people want to keep an eye on those numbers when they're looking at the label for their foods. Those are, general things to look at. Some people may have other things in mind. So if people have diabetes, they're probably going to look at different things on the label. If people have high blood pressure or, heart disease, there's going to be different things that people will look at. So just to keep that in the frame of their mind. And then there's always food that doesn't have nutrition facts tables as well, so just remember that. It's only going to be on packaged foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, spices, salts, coffee, tea. Those items do not have a nutrition facts table, so if you're looking for it, you're going to be hard-pressed because you won't find it.
So when I just want to get back to the yogurt for a second.
Sure.
Even with yogurt, when you're looking at yogurt, is there a difference in, I don't know, what do you call it, regular yogurt versus the Greek yogurt? Because Greek yogurt seems to be kind of the new thing that people are hearing about and you're seeing more of in the grocery stores. So what's the difference, and what should you really be looking for to put in your grocery cart?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And again, it depends on the person and what your needs are and what your medical history is. Greek yogurt is certainly something I've been recommending to a lot of people these days. It's different from other yogurts in the way that it's processed. So Greek yogurt goes through a special straining method, and if you've bought it before, you'll notice that it's really, it's thick. It's almost like a pudding, so people like that because it's somewhat like a dessert. But the main difference is between the Greek yogurt. So if you were to take this and look at it and compare it to another yogurt, a standard yogurt, the big differences would be in terms of the protein. So there's going to be a lot more protein there. This has about 18 grams of protein for this serving size, about 3/4 of a cup, so that's a lot. Most yogurts are only going to have about 2 to 3 grams, where this is almost comparable to a palm-sized meat of chicken or fish. So that's one major difference. And then other yogurts will probably have anywhere from 10 to 20% DV or daily value for calcium, whereas this one here, this Greek yogurt, has about 50%. So for people who don't drink milk, which is a large percentage of the population, that's a great choice to get in your calcium and your vitamin D.
Okay, and then moving on to soup, because when you're picking up canned soup, I guess one of the things that you hear a lot of people are weary of is the salt intake.
Right.
There's obviously a difference between canned soup and obviously homemade soup, especially when it comes to salt.
Usually, yes. Usually there'll be probably less sodium or salt in a homemade soup, hopefully. Now, I mean, if you're putting it in front of someone and they're using the salt shaker, then they're going to be adding a lot more salt to the soup. But again, if you're looking for a soup that's lower in sodium or salt, then you refer to the percent DV on the nutrition facts table. So as an example, this one here, for the serving size that's specified, 1 cup, it has about 8% DV, which we know from the rule of 5 and 15, that's not very much sodium or salt, so that's a really good choice.
All right, and I know that you mentioned in terms of food that's not labeled, so what should you be aware of when you're going to pick out, fruits and vegetables?
Right. So when you're picking out fruits and vegetables, I mean, as a population, we need to eat more of that stuff in general. So I would say load up the cart with any kind, whether it's fresh, frozen, canned. Just make sure it's in the cart, because about 65% of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are overweight or obese, and about 30% of us don't get the recommended intakes of fruits and vegetables in a day. So really, we want to try and make sure we get more of that in.
So not that you can overdose on fruit and vegetables, but is a recommended daily intake, is it like 5 pieces, say, of fruit?
It goes by servings on Canada's food guide, so it depends on your age and your sex. For us, we would need about 7 servings a day, and a serving would be about a half a cup. The orange there, it's fairly large. It would be about a serving and a half. So it depends on, the person and what stage they are in their life. So you could look to the food guide to know how much, but generally it's anywhere from about 5 to 10 servings depending on the age.
Okay, we have about 30 seconds left, but I'm just wondering, what's the biggest tip that you hand people at this point, this day and age, when obviously we have a problem with obesity and you're trying to get people to eat more fruits and vegetables?
Right. Biggest tip is to try and pick 1 to 3 things that you can do to change in your diet. So one thing might be, after people seeing this today, would be to look on the label and to make healthier choices based on the label and what they need. A second tip could be to put more fresh, frozen, or canned fruits and vegetables into your cart. So just picking a couple tips of things that are manageable that you can work on, that you're going to be successful with.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us and handing out such useful tips to me and all of our viewers here at home. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to be right back after this.
Interested in seeing show updates, guest pictures, and information on giveaways? Most